Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, and super behind this week. Story of my life. This is my cards for this previous week's color throwdown challenge, and I decided to pull out the Simon Says Stamp More Spring Flowers stamp set that I bought a few weeks ago. I'd had to have it from their last release, like previous to the latest one. And got it with the die set, and it's been literally sitting on my desk all these weeks. So I pulled it out, and I'm using some Canson XL watercolor paper that I cut down so it would fit in my mini Misty, and I have it smooth side up. And then I treated the watercolor paper with my anti-static powder tool first, and then I stamped the images with Simon Says clear embossing ink, and then I'm coating everything with Hero Arts white embossing powder. And then while I was doing this, I had a second piece of watercolor paper, and I'm like, might as well stamp it a second time. Might as well make two cards rather than just one. So I did the exact same thing, stamped everything with the ink, coated it with the embossing powder. And then I'm going to use my heat tool to melt all of this embossing powder. It always takes a little bit longer on really heavyweight cardstocks and things like watercolor paper, just because they're so heavyweight. It helps if you let your heat tool heat up for a little bit before you bring it to the paper. So I made sure everything was melted, and then after I was done that, I was like, you know, I've got all this extra space on the bottom of these pieces. I should use that. So I put these back into my mini Misty again, and then used my anti-static powder tool, and then I was able to fit the large flower and one of the smaller ones. I was hoping I could fit two. Couldn't get it. Off camera, I ended up stamping even more little flowers and leaves from the set, just so I could do a cluster on the finished cards. But for these ones, I was able to just add the two more flowers, so did the exact same process, stamped, covered with embossing powder, heated it, etc. So I ended up with two sheets of floral images, and like I said, then there was like a third piece that was just a scrap that I stamped the flower, one of the smaller flowers, and the leaves multiple times. So once all that was done, I'm going to go in and watercolor these. Super simple watercoloring. I used my Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers, and I only used one color per like image, I guess, or like one color for everything. I didn't use multiple colors or do any layering or anything like that. I just scribbled on the marker and then pulled it out with my water brush. That's one thing I really like about these particular markers, is you get all this depth. You can see here, you get all this kind of depth and different shades and everything with just one marker. So I ended up just using Carmine Red for the flowers, orange for this flower, as well as yellow, and then violet. That's the color, that was the color challenge, was red, orange, purple, and yellow. And then I added a bit of green, obviously, to the little like leaf images. But I kept everything really simple. It was super quick and easy because, of course, everything's heat embossed. So it's all kind of contained within that heat embossing. So I don't have to worry about being as careful. So it's just super quick. When I want to do kind of quicker cards, but I like the look of watercoloring, this is kind of the way to go because it goes so much faster. So I did all of the images the exact same way, just scribbled on that little bit of marker, pulled it out with my water brush. When they were all done and everything was dry, you want to make sure things are dry before you start like cutting or running through a die cut machine or anything like that, because if anything is still wet, one, you can make it smear, and two, if the paper is still wet, it can tear really easily and come apart really easily. So I made sure everything was dry, and then I'm just taping all my dies into place with some micropore tape. So lining them up with the images, getting them taped into place, and then running them through my machine so I get everything die cut. So again, fairly quick and easy. So got all of this die cut, and then once those were done, I'm going to set those aside. And then while I was doing this, I was mentally thinking like, how am I going to put these on my card? What am I going to use for my background, etc., etc. And I could not resist pulling out this is the Flora background. I've had this again sitting here on my desk, and I've just been dying to use it because it's gorgeous. So I've got that face up on my desk here, and I have some more of the Canson XL watercolor paper because I cut down a huge sheet because I didn't have any scraps left. So I had all these like pieces sitting on my desk. So I was like, I just kept using them. I just kept grabbing for them. So I'm inking up the stamp with the same clear ink. I had already treated my watercolor paper there with the anti-static powder tool, and I'm pressing it with the smooth side onto the stamp there. Just pressing it with my fingers and then trying to go around and make sure I've got everything stamped, even though I wasn't too worried if it doesn't stamp perfectly. But got it stamped as well as I could. You can use like the larger Misty for this. That's awesome for background stamps. I just didn't feel like pulling it out. So I just did it like this. So I've got it stamped. I'm going to coat it with the same white embossing powder. So once this is all coated, same thing, I'm going to heat it with my heat tool till it's melted. It took a little bit longer again because this is an entire piece with a background stamp stamped on it. But once I had everything completely heated, I want to do really simple watercoloring. I didn't want to do anything fancy. With this one, you totally could though. Like all these new background stamps, you could do some really fun watercoloring. I've seen some gorgeous cards from some of the other designers. But mine, I just wanted simple. So I just grabbed that same yellow zig marker, scribbled it on the lower right corner here, and then I really squeezed my water brush. So a lot of water came out. Like I wanted it to pool onto this so I could pull the color out really, really well as have it fade out to white. So simple, even though it's a little tiny detail water brush, you can still get effects like that. You just got to kind of control how much water you use. So I had done that, and then I'd also stamped the letters Mom from the new Mom and Dad icon set. I was just like grabbing things at random with this card. I used so many things, but I was having fun with it. So I'd grab those and I'd stamp them as well onto a piece of the watercolor paper, heat emboss them, and then I used the violet zig marker to watercolor these in and just lightly scribbled it along the bottom areas of the letter and then pulled it up with the water brush there to kind of give it an ombre effect, but not quite. So again, made sure everything was completely dry. Before I start running these through, I used the coordinating dies for the letters, and then I used the largest of the stitched rectangle dies from Simon for the background. So got everything die cut, and then I arranged my cluster of flowers onto this background here how I wanted them. And then I pull up my phone and I take a picture of this because I have found lately especially, I'll do things like this and then I will forget what I've done. I'll forget how I had it arranged, even if it's only a few minutes. I, totally space on it. So I took a picture with my phone so I can have that set aside to refer to when I actually go to adhere everything. But before I got to that, I grabbed a piece of black cardstock and I'm just going to stamp one of the sentiments from that same Mom and Dad icon set. There's a bunch of little sentiments that coordinate with the images and whatnot. So I treated the black cardstock, same thing with the anti-static powder tool, stamped the sentiment with the clear ink, covered it with white embossing powder, heat set that, so once it's all melted, I'm going to funnel that embossing powder back into the container from my little coffee filter there. I've had people ask me that. I will use the same coffee filter over and over again between projects, especially when it's 90% of the time I'm using like just white embossing powder. So if it's the same embossing powder and there's nothing else in the filter, I'll just reuse it over and over and over again. Like a pack of coffee filters has lasted me for years. So I did all that, and then I grabbed my little paper trimmer to trim this down into a really narrow little strip for this sentiment. And now I'm going to start adhering everything onto this background. So I got my phone off to the side with a picture of how I had it arranged. I used the Tonic Nouveau glue that I used on my last cards. This is the second time I've used it. So far, I'm really liking this adhesive. It's really, really good. Just like with any liquid adhesive, use a light touch. I don't squeeze the bottle very much. I'm not actually applying very much adhesive at all. That's one thing, regardless of the glue you're using, for the most part. If you find your cardstock and your paper is warping a lot, try and lighten up significantly on how much glue you need, because you don't need very much when you're using liquid adhesive, especially because you're adhering paper to paper. Very little is needed. So I adhered everything with that, as well as some foam tape just to add like some dimension so that some of this is really popped up, and then tucked kind of the leaves in here and there. The green isn't part of the color challenge, but when it comes to floral images, sometimes it needs that little bit of greenery. It just looks weird without it. So added all those, and then I adhered the letters to the background flat with the glue as well. And then that little embossed sentiment, I decided to just trim down a little piece of the foam tape into a narrow little strip. So I just trim that down with my scissors. That way I can kind of pop that sentiment up right below the letters for Mom. So once I'm done with that, I want to do my card base. And I decided to just go with a really pale gray to kind of make the background and these flowers and everything pop. So I've got some Simon Says Fog cardstock, which I just love this gray. It's so pretty. So grab that. It's cut to 5.5 inches by 8.5 inches. So I'm going to score it at 4 1/4. So it'll be a top folding A2 size card. So 5.5 by 4 1/4. And this is where I'm using all these extra flowers that I had stamped and watercolored off camera. So, and same thing, I'd done a little cluster of them, took a picture of it just to see how it would look. And then I'm going to just adhere those flat to the inside of the card with that same adhesive. So got everything adhered into place, and then I can add adhesive to the sentiment. I did the exact same thing. I had stamped onto black cardstock, and heat embossed it and then trimmed it. So got that adhered, so that finishes off the inside of the card, and now I can adhere the watercolor piece to the outside of the card. I did think about using foam tape for this as well, but because I basically was doing like double layers of foam tape with some of the flowers, it was already pretty dimensional, so I didn't want to pop it up too much. So adhered that flat to my card, and then of course had to add a few sequins. So I pulled out the Pretty Pink Posh Sparkling Clear Confetti Mix. This is the new one that everyone's raving about. These sequins are flat, they have no, or they're flat with slightly cupped edges, and they have no hole in them. So I like them, but I still like normal sequins with a hole. It's never bothered me. I know it bugs some people, but I don't mind. But these are new and they're fun, so I keep reaching for them. But yeah, same thing. I just pick them up with my crystal katana, and I'm using little tiny dabs of this Nouveau adhesive. That's one thing I'm really liking about this, is it's great for this too. It really works well with sequins. I just have to be really careful making sure not to squeeze the bottle, otherwise you're going to get like blobs of adhesive. So I just use little dabs of it, press the sequin into place, and they're good to go. So that finished off my cards for today. As always, I will have links below the video to my blog post, links to all the supplies used, pictures, etc., etc. Check that out below the video if you are interested. Thank you all so much for watching, subscribing, thumbs upping, and commenting on my videos. I really appreciate it, and I will see you all very soon in the next one. Bye!